Good morning. It's Bank Holiday Monday. We've just had the Easter weekend, and I'm quickly taking half an hour out to re-edit the part 2 video I did on the Spendor BC1s. I uploaded the second part on Saturday, and I think it had about 400 and something odd views, and I pulled it yesterday. I'm going to re-edit it, and what will follow will be that re-edited version. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've been dragged into this argument that happened between my client and a couple of people on this Spendor page that I'm not part of. I'm not part of any of these forum pages or Facebook pages other than the Celestian one, because I'm not interested in tittle tattle and people saying this about that and people getting on their high horses, their soapboxes about speakers, and off they go, and you get this thread of hundreds of comments of people bickering. I'm nearly 50 years old and I have grown up. I don't get involved in that, and I can truly say, although it might not seem that way, that any comments that may be directed towards me about something I've done doesn't bother me. I've grown thick-skinned, and at my age you don't care, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not on those pages, because I'm not interested. I don't want to get involved in those discussions. I just want to do my job and then send the speakers out the door. But this instance, initially, I was very annoyed that my client had been so upset by some things that had been said about, I think, me, more so about his speakers. I don't know how that played out because I'm not on that page. I haven't seen any of the comments. But since uploading that video, a couple of people contacted me via email to say, actually, it might not have played out the way you thought. And I have since found out that the main guy in question on this Spendor page used to work for Spendor. I think he was an apprentice of Spencer Hughes or Derek Hughes. I don't know. I'm not particularly bothered. The bit that bothers me, and I'm sorry I'm doing this in the public domain, but I've been pulled into the public domain by all of this, is how I've been dragged into it. My client contacted me probably about a week ago to tell me about all of this that was kicking off on the Spendor page, and I really wasn't very bothered. I explained to him what I thought the drivers were in his speakers, one of them being what I thought was a BC2 woofer, and that I'm just not interested in the politics behind it all. I'm not on these pages, so I don't care. What did annoy me was I had a call on Good Friday, so a bank holiday, to further tell me about how everything had kicked off again on this page. And this particular Facebook or Spendor page expert had gone what I would consider over and above with his comments back to my client, to the extent I think he contacted him at 1 o'clock in the morning, which is a bit psycho as far as I'm concerned. So I had quite a grizzle about that in my first video, because I don't like to see people upset. I don't like to see people being bullied. I think having kids puts you more into that frame of mind. You become more protective. But it transpires that maybe it was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't know, and I'm going to say now, I don't care. But what I am going to say is what really pissed me off is how I've been pulled into this. I've had my Easter weekend to a degree ruined by A, a phone call on Good Friday to tell me all about this, and then B, emails throughout the weekend from anonymous people, I'm not going to name anyone, politely explaining the situation and how it may have been half and half, blah de blah. And whilst I kind of ignored it, it's still an earworm in your head, and you know, you're trying to be nice and have a lot of laughs with your family and stuff, but you've got this thing burrowing away in your head. So I just want to clear that up, and it's really peed me off that I've been pulled into this, because to me these are just another pair of fucking speakers, and really and truly now I just want to get them done and out the door. I know they mean a lot to people, but I have so many of these come in and out the shop. I just want to get them done. I don't need to know all of this crap about them, all of the politics behind them. I've been given 2 boxes filled with drivers and a crossover in each one. I'm going to do the best I can using those parts and then send them back to the client. I don't need to know the rest, but I've been pulled into it, and it's a bit annoying. Anyway, this little section is over 6 minutes long now. I'm going to get these speakers done and out the door as fast as I can. This is really the main reason, stuff like this, as to why I'm stopping client repairs. I just cannot be arsed with this anymore. So anyway, here comes a re-edited version of what I put out on Saturday. Yeah, hopefully it will come out all right, because I've got to chop bits and pieces out. So anyway, yeah, enjoy what's left of the Easter weekend. Right, let's have a look at the 2 baffles closer up. We saw in the previous video that the woofers are mismatched. So to my knowledge, the BC1 came with various different woofers, versions with an Alnico magnet, and then later versions, or a later variant, which is I think what we've got here. I've seen this woofer in many a BC1. I've seen the red and blue Alnicos, I think that's what they are. But on this one we have a different woofer. This is one of the things that this poor guy was pulled up over. We know these aren't a matched pair. They have very different serial numbers. The amplifier on the back of each one of them is different. So they probably lived in different studios where maybe they were matched with another speaker. I don't know. But this is what we've got. This is what we're working with. So this woofer here, I believe, has a 20mm voice coil. And this is the, what I would say would be the original woofer. Whether it's original to these speakers, because I think they're probably a later pair, an earlier pair. So you would expect to see the Alnico magnet woofer in them. So I'm pretty sure as these had a studio life, these would have popped at some point. This, I believe, and a few other people that know these speakers very well that I've discussed it with, believe this is from a BC2, and so do I. My understanding and my experience is that this basically performs the same as the other driver, but we have a larger voice coil, and the power handling of this driver is a little bit more than the other. And in my eyes, I would probably prefer to have a set of these. Whilst they're not strictly going to be a BC1, they're more like a BC2. Yeah, that's probably what I would go for. Right, what I have done is side by side measured these, both the woofers, both the tweeters, both the super tweeters, and the information I got from the measurements suggests to me that they match really well, within not enough to warrant replacing them. I can understand why the client would want to replace one of them. so we can get them as near to a matched pair as we can. But in terms of the measurements, their frequency response, near field, cumulative spectral decay, distortion, everything else, they're pretty much identical. I believe Spendor tried to release these as matched pairs, or the BC1 anyway, within, I think it was 3/4 of a dB. And I don't think at the end we'll be too far off of that. So also I've measured the HF1300s. In fact, I'll put the measurements in for the woofers as a comparison now. Okay, the HF1300s, these are the 16 ohm version, and I find these are normally very consistent. So I will put the measurements in for those now. And again with the 16 ohm Coles super tweeter, I'll put the measurements in for those now. But again, they are a very good match. So I think in terms of the drivers we have, we are good to create not a matched pair. They won't have matching serial numbers. They've come from different stables, but we're going to create something good from these. They're not going to match in terms of their serial numbers, but they're going to sound lovely. They're going to match measurement wise. I'm not interested in all this stigma that surrounds matched pairs and, oh, that's not right because it's got a different serial number, they're not going to match. They do. There's many a mismatched serial number set of speakers out there which were meant to be sold as pairs that match. They use the same components, the same drivers. Yes, there was discrepancies in the construction of these, hence why they tried to match them, but get over it. Right, so I want to get the crossovers done today. My client has asked me to refurbish the cabinets and recloth them, strip the baffles back, sand them back and spray those up as well, so we get them looking really nice again. The cabinets, there's some veneer that's starting to lift on them, so I need to glue that back first. And then they're not going to be completely perfect because they are damaged here and there, and they've had the fixings to the sides of them as well. So I'm not going to be able to get them 100%, but we're going to get them very nice. And what we're going to end up with is a very nice set of speakers, which will sound lovely, I'm sure. Right. I've done a number of these, and my go-to replacement for these is Solon. So that's what I'm using. We have a 33 ohm resistor here and here. This one appears to have a bit of heat damage, not so much on the other crossover. So what I'm going to do, this resistor is across our inductor. So I'm going to move this 33 ohm, which is a higher power handling version, same resistance value. I'm going to move that to here, and I'm going to replace this resistor because our signal goes through this. I'm going to replace that with something else and something better. So we've retained the inductors, we've tested those. I'll put up the crossover schematic that I took again now. So yeah, the values of the caps on here are exactly the same to the other crossover. I've seen many of the BC1s. These are the values they use. Here we have a 1.5 microfarad capacitor. On the other we had a 1 and a 0.68. I'm going to put a 1 and a 0.68 back into here. or did I get a 1.5? No, sorry, 1.5. It looks like that's been drilled out and that capacitor replaced in place of what would have been there before, but there's no evidence there to suggest that it has been replaced. So I don't know quite how that's come about. Maybe they didn't have anything to go in there, so they've just drilled a hole in there and fitted that. I don't know, and I'm not bothered. So we will take these off, clean this up, and fit our new caps. Go. Right, so before we had some foam running along here, which is obviously completely degraded. I'm going to add some new foam in there, which will stop our caps rattling around and make it look pretty. I've said it before, but if you're in any doubt, take photos of these before you take the old caps off. Don't strip them both at the same time, do one at a time, and that way you shouldn't go too far wrong, because the last thing you want to do is put a incorrect value in the wrong place, or something like a resistor where a cap should be, that sort of thing. Right, soldering iron's pretty much warmed up, so I'm going to get cracking on this and time lapse it, because I'm sure this video is getting long enough. Right, so there we go, all done. New capacitors, that resistor moved to there, and a couple of 16.5s added in place of. So there we go, all done. Part 3 will be the cabinet work, the baffles, getting these back together without the amplifier to start with, so basically like a BC1, and then we can do all our measurements and bits and pieces to make sure that as far as the drivers and the crossovers, cabinets and everything else go, we are all good, and then we can take a look at the amplifiers.